Welcome, everyone. Life as we know it has clearly changed in a dramatic fashion over the last several months in the environment and clearly here at CW as well. We've seen a drastic impact on enterprise networking. For those of you listening in today who have never really had a workforce before operating in a remote capacity, you're going to be really excited to hear the information that some of our CW experts are going to share with you today. You're going to hear about really effective tools like SD-WAN, SDA, and DNA Center to help protect your assets, optimize your networking, and really come out of this pandemic as effectively as we possibly can. My name is Bob Rossi, and I'm the Vice President of our Networking, Digital Workspace, and Security Solutions team here at CW. I want to welcome you to CW's Bring It On IT sessions for Cisco Live 2020. I'd really appreciate, as well as my teammates, if you would help us out by asking questions that you have specifically that we will answer for you on the session in the chat function. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. I want to say hello and welcome to our two speakers today, Mike Chauvin and Aaron Pratt. These are two highly trained experts that we rely on every single day who are out in front of customers having these really challenging conversations and helping them with solutions. So Mike, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at home, how you and the family are holding up, and then if you can give us some insight into what some new challenges you've seen in the networking space as a result of this massive shift to a remote worker environment.
Thanks, Bob, for that introduction. I'm Mike Chauvin, practice lead for Cisco SD-WAN at CDW. Right now, during this time, this quarantine time, I have, it's kind of been the norm for me as far as work from home. It's something I've been doing for CDW for over 6 years now. Ever since I was hired on, I was able to work from home. I would say the main challenges for me is not being able to interact with my friends, go over, well, I shouldn't say not being able to interact because we have these great video solutions that we can do, but it's just not the same as going over for a barbecue, being able, to give my friends a hug, say hello, and have that more personal relationship. With that, the other challenges that I'm seeing and that I'm seeing companies have, I would say is more from the perspective of now you have workers that used to be working from a corporate site or an on-premise site that may have spanned 50 to 100 locations. Now with this pandemic that hit, we now have customers that had to adjust quickly and had to now support over 1,000 regional sites, right, or remote sites for their customers. And adapt quickly and get that moving forward. Where I would say what hasn't changed is the fact of the complexity of managing these solutions. Yes, 50 to 100 sites is not what 1,000 sites are, but in the grand scheme of things, it was still a complex environment to manage, especially when you're talking about user experience and security. Yeah, so that's kind of my insight on those challenges.
All right, thanks, Mike. Aaron, over to you.
Hi, I'm Aaron Pratt, so I'm also practice lead at CDW, and I'm focusing on all the Cisco DNA and SD access technologies. And I gotta say, with this whole pandemic thing, I've been really trying to look at the positives thing. I just try to make that a habit. And really about a week in, I was outside in the backyard in the evening, and I noticed there's all these stars out there, and some were like really bright. And at first I thought they were a plane flying over, and ended up that was a planet. The air kind of cleaned up, the sky was bright, it was blue during the day, and I really started to enjoy that and spent more time outside just kind of looking at nature. So that was a little bit of the side benefit from that. It was a pleasant change. Hopefully we can keep them out as much as possible. But from a networking standpoint, really, just like, the stars outside, everything has changed from a networking standpoint. We've gone from basically managing, hundreds of users in a single data closet in a contained environment at a campus office or something like that, where all your users are connecting the same place, and it was easier to manage and maintain. Now with work from home, we've taken that same environment, we've basically deployed it to hundreds of locations, to all the home offices of all of our employees. And to add to that, it's all across the internet, which you don't have any control over. And it's also on a consumer broadband, which again, you have no control over. So it's really taken the administrative overhead and grown it exponentially. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've seen from a networking standpoint that is going to affect change moving forward.
Aaron, great point. I'm really glad that you brought that up. I know a lot of our customers and our viewers today are having to deal with that administrative overhead and really, helping secure just this massive amount of remote locations. So can you tell us more about, some of the challenges in addition to that you're hearing from customers? And just as a quick side note, if you're just tuning in now and you have questions, even not just on networking, but also specifically on security, please put those questions in there and we'll be sure to answer those for you.
So, Bob, the biggest thing that I see is remote workers comes remote policy. So every company has a security policy and they have ways that they maintain and monitor and take care of everything. And before the pandemic, that was really focused on maybe one or two locations, right? It was manageable for the IT staff. You had a single location where you brought that traffic in and out of, a single place of control. You had physical access to the location. And now you've sent that out into the work from home environment, extended your network footprint out across the internet. It's also in a location you have no physical access or physical control over. And so it adds a lot of risk. And so we really, from a networking standpoint, we have to rely on the endpoint. Whatever that endpoint is, has to be able to connect, manage, monitor, maintain, and secure the connectivity moving forward. And this is not sustainable with our traditional methods. Today, like 95% of all network configuration changes are done manually. And you just can't keep that moving forward. There's just too much, the footprint is too big. And this is really the beginning of the automation revolution. Really think about what VMware did for the server world over the last 10 to 20 years. This is what software-defined networking is going to do for the networking world, adding a software layer in between the hardware and the intent of the network. And this is going to happen very rapidly over the next few years.
So that's the challenge. Mike, why don't you fill us in with some of your knowledge on what's the solution?
Yes, of course. And luckily, Cisco offers a number of solutions, especially from a software-defined networking perspective. Also, our CDW solution architects from those solutions can help better understand your challenges and design solutions based on the technology that Cisco has. And some of those solutions include like intuitive management platforms that Aaron was talking about just a second ago, having to manage the device by device solution. Now we can do it from a central location and make the complexities of managing these type environments a lot more simplistic and a lot more user friendly. Also, these different type of tools can provide visibility. It allows you to see the anomalies that may be happening in the network, the norms, and maybe some unique type of performances that you were never aware of before. It'll give you that visibility to enhance your user's experience and maybe sew up some holes that you weren't aware of before. These tools basically will take your business intent and it'll make it a fast, repeatable solution and deployed very quickly and to meet business priorities and requirements. So I'm very excited and happy to be to support these solutions and the direction that Cisco is taking them.
Oh, great. Thanks, Mike. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
So, a lot of the technology that Mike's talking about has been very, very common, very traditional, but where we were managing, these policies, even some of the automation tools that have been out there, but we're managing in those small environments, single environments, or single internet ingress and egress. So there was a lot of areas to control, and you can kind of centralize your control, and management was a little bit easier moving forward. Now that we've taken that and it kind of exploded all over the place, and our workforce has become very much more dynamic in how they connect to the internet. One of the things that our listeners that need to be ready for is that the costs are going to increase. Where we used to have a single device or a set of access points that could support hundreds of users in a wireless office environment, now you're connecting those single devices in a single location. And so the kind of the cost per port is going to increase versus, a more of a shared resource that you'd have in the traditional user campus. In addition to that, having to be able to update all the policies and rules and standards that we have for our employees and how they connect to make sure that our employees are safe, that whatever protections we're letting out there, we're not actually bringing issues into the employees' personal home environment, and we're not letting issues from that home environment affect the business. Traditionally, this has been very difficult to do and a very manual process. So that we can't really step back into the traditional, let's build it, stand it up, put it in place, and run the hardware until the wheels fall off type solution. We really need to be able to continue to invest in networking and connectivity, because if anything we've learned over the last couple months is connectivity is key for business, and the network is critical for that connectivity.
Thanks, Aaron. Mike, a lot of us are excited about the solutions that we've heard about from Cisco that you and Aaron have been covering. Are you seeing any resistance from clients you're working with on that extra cost, given that there might be a perception this is a short-term solution and we might be back in the office or call it back to normal, what we used to believe was normal in the next few months?
Yeah, so there's kind of a couple of different perspectives from a resistance standpoint. When talking to customers, I wouldn't say that it's resistance towards that shift as much as it is maybe in priorities, right? The perspective has changed, and from that there is no resistance, right? From the big projects they were having on site, they may have been put in pause, but now from the work from home, that had moved forward, and it moved forward very quickly. Companies were not resistant to spending or putting the correct equipment in place to support their coworkers from home, because they had to do business as normal, right, and move forward. And the crazy thing is, looking into the future, this might become the norm, especially if companies, I believe, see this as something that is productive. The coworkers are still productive from home. It's boosting morale. They don't have to put as much money into commercial property, and they may even see an increase in profit or and morale within the coworkers because of the work-life balance and things of that nature. So, yeah, no, I am not experiencing resistance from that perspective. Just maybe an alter of priorities.
In addition to that, as much as employees enjoyed sitting in traffic for 2 to 3 hours a day on their commute to and from the office, I think there's going to be a rethink about what we're doing and how we work in the future. Yeah, there's going to be a couple things over and above the employee work-life balance and making them feel engaged as well as part of the company. And we've seen a lot of large companies have already starting to announce that they're probably going to keep a work from home policy in place. There's going to be short-term pressures around social distancing. We really can't expect to just go back into the same work environment that we had before. There's a lot of the work environments were open, collaborative spaces that were really designed to create easy and open interaction in between everybody. Well, with the pandemic going on, that is actually the opposite of what we need. And so employers have to start thinking, do they maybe just have staff, or do they have to look at least in a larger location to be able to do that? So now you're going to have some business costs that are associated with that. And so I think a lot of organizations are going to rethink moving forward on how they're going to continue to connect these users. I think there'll be some groups like IT groups that generally most of their work is done from a remote standpoint. Those that have an easier time working remotely will probably continue to work remotely as long as the productivity stays where it needs to be. So that is where some of the things that's happening right now will be changed forever.
Thanks, Aaron. So in the Bring It On sessions that we do like this, we always like to include a few real-world examples. And we absolutely have a great personal case study that we're going to share with everyone today. But before we get there, again, just a little housekeeping issue. I'd like to ask our audience at home for a favor. If you could go into the chat area, and if you could share with us, what was your experience like in helping your organization transition to this remote environment? what type of obstacles did you face? Are you able to collaborate as effectively as you were when you were in the office and leveraging some conferencing tools? If you could share your thoughts or comments in the chat area, that would be fantastic. We'd love to hear from you. So next, Mike and Aaron, I'm hoping you can share a little bit about this story that we here at CDW, how our internal teams, how we enabled all of our coworkers to be able to work from home in a really, really short period of time.
Yeah, and I'll take that first, Bob. I'll say that, like I was saying in my introduction, my normal life was working from home. And a lot of CDW coworkers are like that are out here in the field. But then there's parts of the business that are on site and have to be on site in order to support the business needs that we have and to keep our business moving forward. So when this pandemic hit, and now those workers who are on site had to shift home, the first thought is, how do we support that? And we were from the perspective of, hey, we're an IT team, or we're an IT solution company. We believe we can support that. But we did have to change quickly and swiftly and start reevaluating things and understanding what our infrastructure could support. As I'm sure, in this case, and for many people or many companies, before the pandemic, our virtualization infrastructure was built to support approximately 40% of the workforce, not our entire workforce base. While our virtual desktop infrastructure solution could easily support 4,000 simultaneous users, these users typically worked in CDW offices on a controlled LAN-WAN environment. Once we went outside of that, nothing was no longer controlled. But we adapted very quickly with plans that we put in place and plans that were supposed to be over a few weeks. But we put our heads together and were able to converge rather quickly and support our workforce from home. Aaron?
Yeah, I'll tell you, an initial challenge, and this probably hit a lot of people out there, but our challenge was really, how do we implement these changes to the infrastructure in such a short amount of time, where we had to upgrade the infrastructure, the firewalls, internet connectivity? How do we deal with the servers and storage for the impact of all the additional traffic that's going to come into our data center? So within our data center, we needed to build out the compute and licensing first to be able to support 7,500 simultaneous users. So it was a big change from what we had before, where we were expecting an estimated about 6,000 simultaneous sessions per day. Now, to support all that, we need more internet bandwidth. And so we increased our 1 gigabit circuit in our data center up to 5 gigabits. So that was to give us that additional capacity from a connectivity standpoint. And to make sure our CDW.com website was not impacted by our work from home efforts, we moved it to a dedicated 1 gig circuit. That way, we wouldn't have any potential problems, and our customers could get to our website and be able to order and interact with their account teams moving forward, because everybody was in kind of a crisis mode. So by extending our network, to those thousands of locations out there for our work from home, we can create some potential security concerns. And so we accelerated some of the efforts that we had in place. We were testing new firewall technology and applications. So we had already been testing that for a while, so we were able to just implement that fairly quickly. And that new platform replaced an older generation security appliance, just was not going to be able to keep up. And then we started, leveraging our web content tools to make sure that we could, protect our at-home users from malicious websites and things like that, so we can provide some content filtering and intrusion protection to make sure that they are not exposed to any of the bad actors on the internet that are out there. But really, the moral of the story is we found out we're all in this together. Everybody had to go through this change, and we had to do it very quickly. And we felt pain, just like a lot of you did. And so we have the same challenges, but we know what you're dealing with, and we're here to help and work with you to get through this.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. So we're just about out of time for today's session. And I want to really thank Aaron and Mike. Guys, thanks so much for chatting with us today, giving us those experiences, how we did it, again, here at CDW. And I want to extend a big thank you to all the folks who joined us remotely for our Cisco Live Bring It On session. Again, just a reminder, if you could leave any of your networking or security questions in the comments, I'll make sure that our team experts like Mike and Aaron can jump in the conversation to answer those for you directly. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us in the CDW team. We enjoyed chatting with you. We hope to see you soon and stay safe. Take care, everyone.